help from that. Thank you. I'm obliged to inform you that this meeting is being live streamed and recorded, and to assist people watching or listening online, can I remind members to identify your name and role before speaking, please? So moving on to the agenda, item number 1, apologies for absence. Unfortunately, we've got apologies from Councillor Hurst-Knight, who's unwell today. Item number 2, disclosable interests. Does anybody have any disclosable interests? No. Okay. Item number 3, minutes of the meeting held on the 19th of July 2023. I'm happy to propose those. Do I have a seconder?
Councillor Nevans, I'll second.
All those in favour, please show. Thank you very much. I should have pointed out that Councillor having IT problems, so he's currently trying to sort his laptop out. Can't get any of the documents open. Moving on to public question time. We have 5 public questions today. Mr. Tim Collard is going to be earning his corn. The first question is from a Jamie Russell, and that will be read by Tim Collard, Assistant Director, Legal and Governance. Tim.
Thank you. Mr. Russell's question is this. Shropshire Council's financial strategy indicates that it currently plans to sell £19.8 million worth of assets to fund the proposed North West Relief Road. Could you please explain what these assets are and what additional assets are being investigated to cover the much anticipated substantial increase in price for the project?
Thank you, Tim. And the answer will be provided by Councillor Dan Morris.
Councillor Dan Morris, portfolio holder for highways. The council has a number of assets identified for disposal in its Shrewsbury Sustainable Urban Extension West. This includes a mix of proposed residential and commercial land. Whilst the proposed proceeds of the sale will support the North West Relief Road, the project sits within a wider capital programme, which in part is funded by an overall disposal programme. The disposals programme is under constant review to maximise the potential to support the council's approved capital projects. The disposal of assets, in addition to those already identified in the Shrewsbury Sustainable Urban Extension West, are not currently being actively considered to fund any potential funding gap. We should note, however, that the long-term economic benefits of the North West Relief Road are worth many times the anticipated cost of the project build cost to the economy of Shropshire.
Thank you, Councillor Morris. The second question is from Emma Bullard, again to be read by Tim Collard.
And the question is this. In a meeting between Shropshire Council, the Environment Agency and Daniel Kaczynski MP on the 28th of August 2022, Shropshire Council stated that they were confident that additional costs would be met by way of SIL monies, capital return on land disposal, borrowing, brackets that already has full council approval, and potential DFT additional funding. Could you please say what total budget for the North West Relief Road this was based on, and how much of the overspend was planned to be met by each of SIL money, land disposal, borrowing and DFT additional funding?
Thanks again, Tim. Once again, Councillor Dan Morris.
Thank you, Chair and Leader. Shropshire Council is making allowances in its medium-term capital budget preparation for the required match funding allocation towards the North West Relief Road. The total value of this contribution and the funding mechanism and allocation supporting this will be in line with previous statements published as part of the full business case due at the end of the 23-24 financial year, and which will then be considered by full council for approval.
Thank you, Dan. The third question is read by Fleur Mackinder, who I believe is in the room with us. Fleur, if you'd like to come to the table. Joyce or Dean, could you press the microphone for me? Thank you. Thank you very much indeed. Over to you, Fleur.
Thank you. In September 2022, Shropshire Council unanimously voted for a motion to support the right to grow on suitable plots of public land. This was an exciting moment for many community gardening projects, such as the one my husband and I run in Shrewsbury, the street allotment project. However, almost a year on, we have no news on our community-supported expression of interest to establish such a site on Rock Street and Old Potts Way. We submitted the design with detailed information of the plan as required through Shrewsbury Town Council. Our local councillor has explained that our application, along with another in Oswestry, was intended to trial the system, but there appears to be no progress. Disappointingly, we've completely missed this summer's growing season. We hope not to miss the opportunity of planting fruit trees this autumn. Please, can you provide an update on both the Rock Street Shrewsbury application and the Oswestry application? And how does the council propose to ensure this system is easy for members of the public to use?
Thank you very much for that. Answering the question, Councillor Dean Carroll.
Councillor Dean Carroll, Cabinet Member for Assets and Housing. Thank you very much for your question, Flo, and it's an exciting project that I know we've all been very keen to develop and bring forward. Shropshire Council have indeed initiated the process to support the community growing initiative and have set up the processes which consider insurance, health and safety and public protection, together with consultation with parish and town council representatives. Site selection needs to be determined with reference to other opportunities such as biodiversity net gain and community woodlands to ensure that from a wider corporate and county perspective, the most suitable use of the asset is achieved. The process has been developed whereby the appropriate town or parish council will consider the request in the first instance. In terms of the Rock Street application, Shrewsbury Town Council have been very diligent in their initial investigations. Shropshire Council received formal notification from Shrewsbury Town Council in mid-August 2023 of a request for land at Rock Street Youth Centre to be used for community growing. The Town Council has undertaken soil testing that indicates that there are high levels of petrol, diesel, lead and arsenic present on the site and suggested that any propagation should be restricted to raised beds and uncontaminated soil brought in from off-site. Shropshire Council has now considered this information received very recently and will respond to the group accordingly with potential options. Unfortunately, this side is not straightforward, but Shropshire Council will continue to support with a potential solution, obviously mindful of safeguarding the safety of the public. In terms of the application in Oswestry, there is no specific reference to the particular site in question, but the one request, again, that has passed through Oswestry Council concerns a piece of land that is about to change ownership, and therefore this has paused and will be picked up promptly post-transfer. Shropshire Council remains very committed in support of community growing and is looking forward to receiving more requests in the future.
Thank you, Dean. Thank you, Fleur, for your question. Thank you. Question number 4 is by Charles Green, again read by Tim Collard. Tim.
Thank you. At the last Cabinet meeting on the 19th of July, Shropshire Council adopted a new supplementary planning document for the Ironbridge Gorge World Heritage Site, which is now to form a material consideration in the planning application process. This means that there are now 6 SPDs. One of those, which was adopted over 12 years ago at the Cabinet meeting on the 13th of July 2011, is the supplementary planning document on sustainable design with its integral sustainability checklist, which was approved on that date also for application as part of the development management process. The use of this SPD is enshrined within Core Strategy Policy CS6, Sustainable Design and Development Principles, which says at paragraph 4.78 that to mitigate climate change through sustainable construction, all proposals, including changes to the existing building stock, will be required to complete a sustainability checklist to accompany planning applications. This follows on from this sustainable design SPD, which states at paragraph 5.1 that, as outlined in policy CS6, all development proposals must complete the sustainability checklist as a validation requirement and be in accordance with at least the minimum standards set out within it. Having declared a climate emergency in May 2019, the matter of sustainability should be to the fore in Shropshire Council's approach to development. Why then does Shropshire Council not require all planning applications to comply with this paragraph 4.78 of policy CS6 and complete the sustainability checklist as a validation requirement. Question.
Thank you very much, Tim. And to answer the question, Councillor Chris Schofield.
Thank you, Leader. Councillor Chris Schofield, Portfolio Holder, Planning and Regulatory Services. The Sustainable Design SPD, which is guidance, was adopted in 2011. The checklist, which was part of the document and was to be part of the submission of a planning application, was quite an onerous list and does not reflect the changes in policies over the last 12 years. Whilst the document suggested it becomes part of a validation checklist, the requirements for sustainable development has now moved on. We are therefore in the process of reviewing the list of supplementary planning documents, which will be refreshed when the local plan is in place, and this will be one of those being considered.
Thank you very much, Chris. And the final question from the member of the public is a question from Nicholas Squire, but I understand it's being read by Mr. George Edwards. Thank you, Mr. Edwards.
Thank you. Excuse me, I do have a recovering from a cold. The public could not rely on officers to robustly defend the Planning Committee's refusal of the Footbridge Farm intensive poultry application on appeal. There is a reference given. The key harms found by the planning inspector relating to odour and ammonia were entirely due to the expert evidence introduced by the public and pursued at the appeal hearing, with legal counsel emphasising these points and noting the untested assumptions in the applicant's evidence, particularly those in AS Modelling and Data's assessments. ASM&D's assessments were incorrectly given significant weight in the planning balance because, according to Cabinet, officers, chosen experts, namely ADAS and Council's Environmental Protection Team, advised the assessments were fit for purpose when, according to the inspector, they never were. Cabinet further stated specialist consultees carefully assess technical assessments within poultry applications as part of the planning process and will continue to look at the suitability of methodologies used in the assessments and will take into account the Footbridge Farm appeal decision, all of which is actually no more than what officers and consultees involved should routinely be doing anyway. Therefore, what reasons have the officers involved identified as to why they repeatedly failed over 6 years to correctly assess the Footbridge Farm application, and what improvements have they identified excuse me, and or implemented to reduce the risk of incorrectly assessing such applications again, and what action plan do they have for retrospectively reviewing other applications where ASM&D's assessments had been given significant weight in the planning balance?
Thank you, Mr. Edwards. The answer comes from Councillor Chris Schofield.
Thank you for your question, Mr. Edwards. In the appeal decision, the inspector considered that there were deficiencies in the applicant's odour assessment and that, in his judgment, the conclusions reached in the assessment could not be relied upon. He also acknowledged that odour dispersal modelling is not an exact science and is based upon a number of variables. Notwithstanding the decision of the inspector on the appeal, it was the correct approach for the council to give significant weight to the advice of statutory and technical consultees when considering the application. Nevertheless, the inspector's comments in the appeal decision, including those in relation to the methodology used, will be helpful in assessing any future proposals. We would reiterate that the appeal decision will be taken fully into account when future applications are being considered. Decision on planning applications are made having regard to a multitude of competing considerations which impact on the planning balance, and there is no plan to revisit previous decisions.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you, sir.
Morning. Yeah, there are two parallel sets of wooden steps leading down from Mansell Williams Way in Shrewsbury to the Reebrook Nature Reserve. The steps are in frequent use by residents across the area to access the natural amenity, but also as a walking route between residential areas along the Reebrook. One set is maintained in good condition by Shrewsbury Town Council. The other, which connects two public rights of way, is the responsibility of Shropshire Council Highways. It's in a poor state and rapidly deteriorating. The staircase is potentially unsafe. Some rises are broken, others are missing, with at least one step consisting only of eroding soil. Despite many requests from Highways, nothing has been done. Can you please advise precisely when the staircase will be repaired to an appropriate safe standard? And two, given the staircase links to public rights of way, should this staircase instead be the responsibility of the public rights of way team?
Yeah, thank you, Rosemary. The answer we provided, Councillor Dan Morris.
Thank you, Rosemary, for your question. The concerns about the steps were reported to the council. Unfortunately, this was not logged in the right location and therefore was not assigned to the correct member of the team. However, the team have now been made aware of the issues and we will put in place plans to have the stairs repaired. And given on your second question, the council will review future options for the ongoing maintenance of this asset.
Thanks, Rosemary. Yeah, I think you do on this one. I just had a nod from my right as well. So yes, you do. I was going to ask a supplementary question, but figured I probably couldn't. Rosemary,
thank you. Thank you, Councillor Morris. I'd just like to say that I think your first answer is partially inaccurate. I understand why. The most recent logging of the incident was put in by a member of staff at the council in the wrong location, but that was many months after it was first raised, and I've spent many happy hours going between the town council, the public rights of way team, back to Highways earlier in the spring. I know you're new in the role, so you probably wouldn't, it's not going to be a major item on your agenda, I know, but my point is really that this just seems completely anomalous that a wooden step down from a cycle and footpath is run by Highways, and I think that's probably why it's taken so long to deal with. So I just wanted to ask if there are other, so one, when will it be done? Because it's been months in the asking, not just recently. And also whether there are lots of other anomalous situations like that that perhaps should be reviewed and perhaps handed over to public rights of way, or even in this case to the part of the SLA, the town council. Okay. It seems more appropriate to me.
Councillor Morris.
So on the question of when it will be repaired, I will ask that question directly and get back to you. With regard to your other question, I agree with you, and it does need to be looked at. And as I said in the answer, we are looking at different ways of responding to this and other related things. So I'll get back to you on that as well. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Dan. Makes sense to me.
Thank you. Residents in Bridgnorth have raised a number of concerns about the Fix My Street system for monitoring highway repairs and maintenance issues. Residents feel there's an unacceptable delay between reporting an issue and its actual repair, despite the computer system claiming the issues are closed. Furthermore, some repairs are sprayed with white paint and then left for months until the paint has faded. In the Bridgnorth area, how many issues have been reported via Fix My Street in the last 6 months? How many of these reports have been repaired and how many reports are closed without any immediate action? Why are so many reports marked as closed when no repair has begun? Furthermore, when road and pavement issues are sprayed with white paint to indicate repair is required, what is the time frame for completing the repair? And what implications are there if the repair does not meet this timescale? Residents have a right to know whether the Fix My Street system is fit for purpose and why our basic road repairs take so long or are not completed at all.
Thank you, Councillor Buckley. Councillor Dan Morris.
Thank you for your question. The initial launch of Fix My Street was to get the system in place and operational. The team have carried out detailed business analysis to identify the biggest opportunities for improvement based on the feedback received from the first phase launch. This includes feedback by business users, councillors and our customers, all of which are consistent. The primary challenge is the feedback loop, which incorporates the quality of reports coming in and communication coming out from Fix My Street. Our next phase is to carry out root cause analysis to determine and ensure that the project focus is correct and supports the solutions for improvement. These will then feed into the business case. Due to the complexity of the feedback loop, we're looking at alternative options which may deliver an easy-to-use solution for councillors more rapidly than can be delivered in Fix My Street, which we will continue to keep you updated on. I can confirm this is something that's being actively considered and in terms of developing the next business case. The data from Fix My Street highlights that 543 issues have been reported via Fix My Street in the last 6 months in Bridgnorth, 174 of which have been repaired and 52 have been closed. The remainder sit within the current workflow process. When a street is circled with white paint, 28 days is when they should be repaired by. So clearly there is some work to be done on that. But as far as the national picture is concerned, we compare quite favourably with other local authorities.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Buckley, you've got a supplementary from...
Yes, I was going to say that there was a problem with the publication of the response because you hadn't answered the final 2 questions. But I'm glad to hear that verbally you're stating that it takes 28 days to repair something that has been sprayed. I do hope that's going to be added to the published response. You still haven't answered the very final question, which says what implications are there if the repair does not meet this timescale. And I do just want to clarify then, out of 543 issues in the last 6 months, that means only 32% have been repaired. 58% have had no reply. So in the course of half a year in Bridgnorth, only 1/3 of issues are repaired and 2/3 are left. Is this another example of Bridgnorth being overlooked once again, or is it symptomatic of the level of service across the whole county?
Councillor Morris?
I think overall the level of service in the county has improved, and the stats that we'll show in later reports will back that up. For example, the number of potholes repaired from the 12th of June this year down to week ending the 4th of September have dropped by just close to 21%. So we are a service that's improving. There are things that we could do better, and as I've alluded to in my first response, the software and the feedback loops within the Fix My Street system do need some further work, and we're actively looking in to do that. Just with regard to, bear with me a second. So the implications of the 28 days, well, clearly if they're not repaired within 28 days, that impacts badly on our numbers, adversely on the numbers, the repair numbers that we have. But, and obviously then that creates a problem within the system, particularly when we're coming up to winter. But the implication is that it makes the numbers worse. Sorry, say again.
It was about the legal implications of insurance. So if a pothole is sprayed up and I crash, my car is damaged as a consequence, your lawyers will tell me that I'm not entitled to compensation because you've sprayed the pothole. You're telling me verbally, but not in writing, that by law you must then repair it within 28 days. So if my car is damaged on day 29, what are the legal implications of that?
Well, there's clearly a legal process that you go through to make a claim.
If I just, Mark, can I just bring you in on that? I know it's only it's a member question, but there is a comeback on Kia as well, isn't there, in terms of potholes? But also there is a very specific legal process for pothole complaints.
There is.
Aware of so early on in this.
And just to clarify, so we have published guidance on, if you like, the definition of a pothole. Every council has to have a policy on that, and that specifies depth. Not every report that is made, you know, triggers something that fits that definition. I don't want to be bureaucratic about it, but of course we record all sorts of requests across the county, and then of course there's a prioritisation process depending on the nature of it, the risk of that location. So priority, for example, given to high volume, high speed roads or areas where there's kind of significant risk to pedestrians. There's that prioritisation process constantly going on. when you see something marked with white paint, that indicates that it's been seen and it's been assessed. And what Councillor Morris has relayed there is that we have a contractual requirement with Kia. So it's not a legal requirement as such. It's not a law-based thing, but it's our contractual arrangement with Kia. And if they default on that, that feeds into their performance monitoring. And that's the kind of report process that we're reporting on later today. So to be fair to Kia and to be fair to, I think, the work that's gone on within the service, we've been looking at that, and members will be aware that we've been creating our own in-house team to better and quicker address those kind of smaller repairs that everybody gets concerned about. So that process is kind of moving forward as part of this review process, and our performance is improving considerably in that sense. However, if there is anything that relates to the Kia-Tron contract that's outside of their reporting deadlines, there are penalties that are in place. What I would hope is that none of the examples you're giving fall under a definition of something that is classified as a pothole that exposes us to insurance risk or creates a danger to the public. So if there are any concerns from any members, that's why we continue to ask you, please do highlight them and report them. So if you see something, part of your question was about things being closed on Fix My Street. If you disagree with that, please flag that up with the service or me or anyone that can help.
Yeah, thank you. Sorry, thank you, Mark. I just wanted to clarify because Dan won't be aware of that. Okay, so moving on to item number 6, which is reports from scrutiny. The first report is a verbal report from Councillor Kerr-Wild, Chair of the Transformation Improvement Committee, just following Monday's scrutiny meeting. Councillor Wild.
Okay, thank you. I just want to reiterate a little bit what I said at the meeting on Monday, and to thank James and his team, and also Gwilym, and NJ's here as well, for actually getting the report to us before it actually came to Cabinet. That was really good, and it was really good to see directors there as well, and portfolio holders, which reinforces the importance of the scrutiny role. So thank you very much indeed for that. We are in the process of setting up 3 task and finish groups. As you'll be aware from the figures today, I think the main pressures revolve around adults and children's services. So we will obviously be looking at that, and also the partnership working. So that's our relationship with the ICS, because there was a little bit of discussion about that. And I think that's really important that that's looked into. The other part of the meeting was about the performance indicators. And again, thank you very much to Rob Macy for bringing it forward. It's been a while coming. We're getting there. They're actually up on the website now, which is great. And Roger, myself, Rob, and the head of service, Helen Watkinson, are going to have regular meetings, and we're hopefully going to build on that. So at the moment, I think you see the ones on the website are fairly basic, but we've got the platform up there so that we can take it forward and add to it. And I think it'll be a source of very useful information for members. Whether it's sometime in the future, there's actually a separate area that's not public, because some of the questions that members want, perhaps for confidentiality reasons, could be on the website, but there's certainly lots of information out there, and it will help us do our job. So thank you very much indeed.
Thank you, Councillor Wild.
Anybody's got any questions? Or no, everyone's happy.
You can go now.
Thank you.
So moving on, and I'm delighted actually, because once again we've got actually a real report coming back from scrutiny. So scrutiny item, social housing, renewing the housing strategy. Councillor Joyce Barrow, Chair of Economy and Environment Scrutiny Committee. Thank you, Joyce.
Thank you very much, and I'm delighted to be bringing this. The work that informs this report was started by the former Communities Overview Scrutiny Committee and came through my committee in the new overview and scrutiny structures to be completed. Before I proceed, I would like to thank the members of that committee and Councillor Macy, who was chair of that committee, for the work they started and carried out into this important topic. The report and recommendations have been developed based on the data and evidence that we and the members of the Communities Overview Committee have seen. This has included evidence from the chief executives of a number of registered social landlords who provided social housing in the council's area, and as well as that, a deep dive into the data to understand need in more detail, and considering some of the emerging big questions during a member workshop that saw good cross-party attendance and some robust discussions. Without wanting to repeat the content of the report, I would like to highlight a couple of key insights that the work has both highlighted and reinforced, although I'm sure that they won't be a surprise to anyone here today or listening to this live or viewing the recording. Social housing need is not restricted to urban areas or areas of greater deprivation, as we would usually imagine them to be. It is also a significant issue in rural areas. As a significantly rural and sparsely populated county, this is evident in Shropshire. Sustainable communities need to have a mix of housing type and tenure that provides for a range of residents across the socio-economic and demographic profile. For example, as we know, Shropshire has an older and ageing population. There are some areas of our county where there are a higher proportion of older people living there. As a rule, a higher proportion of the population in rural areas are aged over 65. The data we've seen illustrates that there are parts of the county where there are older populations, that these areas are already getting close to having the same numbers of people aged from 0 to 16 and 65 plus as they have of the working population. And these same places are where the prices of houses are higher than people who work in the area can actually afford. This can mean that older people or those living in a rural community who need social care support could be supported by someone who has to travel there by private car from outside the area because they cannot afford to live near to where they work. Access to social housing in or close to the communities people work in could help to reduce this occurring. The added benefit is that the money earned in a community is more likely to remain in the community and be spent in that community. It was really good to have the portfolio holder at the meeting of my committee when we received this report. They were able to contribute to our consideration of the report. It was helpful for the committee to understand his views and his support for the work done. As a committee, we have supported the recommendations that you have before you today. We look forward to hearing back on whether the recommendations have been accepted, the reasons for any not being accepted, the actions that will be taken and by when for those that have been accepted, and to understand the progress and the impact that has been made as we follow up over the coming months. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Councillor Barrow. And responding to that is going to be Councillor Dean Carroll, who's portfolio holder.
Thank you very much, Leader, and thank you, Councillor Barrow, and thank you for the work of both your scrutiny committee and the former community scrutiny committee. I know and appreciate quite how much work was put into this by both committees, and the level of research and information that was gathered was quite extraordinary for a committee-wide investigation and report rather than a task and finish group. As I said to you when I attended your scrutiny committee, when this report was brought back to it, I very much welcome and am enthusiastic about the findings that you brought back. Particularly, I'd like to comment on 3.1 in terms of the revised allocations policy and scheme. We are already holding regular and challenging accounting sessions with our partners to ensure that they are living up to their obligations under their nomination rights, to make sure that the most vulnerable people are getting access to properties around Shropshire and not just being passed over in favour of the most convenient, which is something that I think both your committee had poured out and had been a concern going back a number of years. We do recognise the importance of the strategic housing function, and strategic housing function is now included in our monthly performance sessions that we have on housing, and we are regularly assessing the performance of the delivery of affordable, social and low-cost housing on a monthly basis, not just from Shropshire Council's own housing provider, Star Housing, but also through our partners, the other registered social providers. And in terms of your comments about the need in rural areas, is absolutely correct. Also, the most challenging aspect of housing delivery in rural areas, particularly as we lack significant land holdings in large parts of the county to directly influence social housing delivery. However, I've been on site in Priest and Baschurch, for example, just in the last couple of months to see the delivery by our partners of affordable housing in rural areas around the county that is both community-led and also focused on older people and younger families rather than stock 3 and 4 bedroom houses that are often delivered in urban areas in social housing. So I would be more than happy for us to bring this back to your committee at the first available opportunity so that you can see the progress we're making in implementing the recommendations that you've brought forward. And I would like to thank you again and all of your committee members for the work that you've put in to this rather exhaustive piece on housing. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Dean. Councillor Cecilia Motley, then Councillor Dean.
Thank you very much, Councillor Cecilia Motley. I have portfolio holder for our social care, public health and communities. And Joyce, as far as I'm concerned, your report absolutely is the spot. There are particular issues that I absolutely support you, particularly your points 3.3 and 3.4. One of the things that we are working very hard to do in my area of work is encourage care in domiciliary settings for elderly people and people who need support, rather than having to seek residential accommodation for them. And what we're desperately looking for is ways that we can increase the housing supply.
Thank you, Councillor Motley. Councillor Julian Dean.
Thank you. And I'd like to thank the portfolio holder for his response, which I take it means that you're accepting all the recommendations, which is very exciting. I was on the final meeting of this overview committee, and I'm very keen to see this taken forward. It's very exciting to hear Conservative councillors talking so excitedly about the importance of social housing. That's wonderful. But we're stuck, aren't we, in terms of actually building social housing? So there's the under 3.5. I think I just want to highlight that bit, which is really saying we need to actively pursue all the opportunities available to see what we can do to become unstuck, and in particular whether that is involves working with community land trusts or looking at other ways of developing this and moving things forward. So I really hope that when we see a return to the committee in November, that that 3.5 in particular has been looked at, that we really investigate what opportunities there might be. Some of this might be in the form of a supplementary planning policy, but I suspect that some of it will also be about working with our economic development team and really partnering with local communities and with nascent land trusts, and possibly even developing some new ones in the area, so that we can begin to crack this nut. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Dean. Councillor Buckley.
Yes, I'd also like to congratulate Joyce and your colleagues for not just the report, but the process that you entered into with the task and finish. I came along to the workshop, it was in this chamber, and it was a really long session, but really worthwhile. And it was so noticeable that amongst members from all parties, there was a very clear consensus. It was really pleasing that we pretty much agreed. And I think you've done really well to capture pretty much all the things that we raised, needing more smaller properties for older people, small families, and having them in the right place with the right support. So I think there's agreement on what's missing. I think where we need to make sure is to have the right mechanism to ensure that we deliver it and that our resources are aligned to what we say is our priority. So I would echo Councillor Dean's suggestion that we look at whether this could form part of an SPD so that it's embedded in our local plan. The leader herself just suggested that could be one way. Another option could be to look at whether we could add this to one of our Shropshire Plan key performance indicators, which I know are currently under review. As I understand it, at the moment we have several thousand people on waiting lists for social housing, so the demand is huge. And through cost of living crisis, of course, it's just growing daily. And our planning officers currently are measured on how many planning applications they approve. There is in there no qualitative measure as to what kind of house, what size of house, what location of house, and what type of house. So we're telling each other we really want to shape the market so it delivers our need, but then we're not measuring our officers on whether that's how they spend their time. So my plea to you, Joyce, as the chair of that scrutiny committee, is to work looking at the KPIs. Could this be a performance measure that we refine so that our officers are following our strategic instruction, so that they will be measured on how many social houses they approve, and they'll be measured on how many adapted housing for people who need smaller houses. We need to have a measure, not just how many houses, but how many of them are fitting where the gap is, that mismatch between the houses we're getting built and the houses we need to be built. It's a real opportunity here, isn't there, to be quite bold and to follow our strategy through. So it's not just words, but it could actually be actions.
Thank you, Councillor Buckley. Councillor Butler.
It's a really interesting debate, and I support the work as well, Joyce. Taking on Councillor Buckley's points, I think a lot of what she raises could actually be answered through neighbourhood plans and be community up. So I know in Clibberry Mortimer our plan is just about to come to referendum in the autumn, but very much here I don't want it just to be turned into a top-down organisation. It needs to be community-led, and I'm sure especially in those rural communities they will support affordable housing. And by neighbourhood planning it then becomes part of the local plan. So it's got to be from the bottom up as far as I'm concerned, not top-down.
Yep, going to get that. Councillor Macy.
I think my only thing was to say thank you, Lewis, for taking it up. The committee previously did put a lot of work into it, and I think the fact that these discussions and so on have involved those involved in the housing and in social housing, as well as the data that we've now got to base policy decisions on, that hopefully makes the case easier in the future as to what others are alluding to in terms of getting that into delivery. So, yeah.
Thank you, Councillor Macy. Councillor Owens.
Thank you, Chairman. Support everything that's been said, and it's good that it's universal, cross-party. All members are really going at this. It's more of taking my chance on this, and it's a procedural question. The meeting was held on the 20th of July. The next meeting is in November. There was a discussion at that meeting, and this is the culmination of the discussion, plus also other items. When will members be able to see an extract of what was discussed at that meeting? It was discussed at council about the delays in minutes, and there was an agreement, I think, said that there would be brief reports of meetings would be circulated because of the delays now, especially like in scrutiny, July meeting, November meeting, members do not see the minutes until the week before the meeting starts. So will that be implemented of the discussion that was held at council a little while ago?
I'll probably have to come back to you on that one, Roger, because
I understand, Chairman, and then may not be an answer today.
Yeah.
I'm just drawing attention because this is an opportunity just to air that, I think, because scrutinies are now meeting less time and this task can finish groups, but it's those minutes, I think, which all members, Cabinet and all 74 members and the public will be interested in some sort of information on what was discussed at that
yeah,
meeting.
the reason I'll come back to you is because I did have a conversation with Tom Dodds about this, and I can't remember where we got to be honest. So, because it was before the summer break, and I think we were due to meet again over that. So let me come back to you on that one. Tim, if you can remind me that I need to go back to Roger on that one. Thank you very much. Finally, Councillor Carroll, and then I'll just come back to Joyce right at the end.
Thank you, Leader. In terms of coming back to some of the comments and questions that have been made, in terms of making a KPI around the delivery of social and affordable housing, well, that's already a KPI that's assigned to me as portfolio holder, which is HEC 17, delivery of affordable homes. The supply of decent affordable housing to buy or rent supports the local economy and is proven to deliver improved labour opportunities, educational outcomes for children, health benefits and reductions in crime. Now, that's a very high level target. However, by the very nature of it being a council and county-wide strategic plan, all of the KPIs against that plan are extremely high level. However, it is incorporated within those KPIs, and it is one that's in the ownership of my portfolio, so to speak. In terms of delivery against aspiration, there's a few elements. Now, the first one is our role through housing policy and our strategic housing function of market stewardship. Now, that comes into play traditionally through our distribution of Section 106 affordable housing contributions, which we use to support our partners in the delivery of affordable housing in locations where otherwise it may be questionably viable. Also in the use of planning policy in terms of how we define exception sites, in terms of the percentage of affordable houses we demand from open market developments. More innovatively, through our use of community-led housing, we operated successfully the Right Home, Right Place scheme, which brought forward the scheme that I previously mentioned in Priest as community-led housing site, which delivered much needed affordable housing on the edge of a village that delivered the mix of housing in the location with the support and services wanted by the local community. But we also have another role, and a role that we've more enthusiastically embraced, which is market disruption through our own owned companies, through Star Housing's own development pipeline of several hundred affordable and low-cost home ownership units county-wide, and through Cornovi Developments Limited, our wholly owned market builder, which has been disrupting market by over-delivering on affordable housing contributions and on the standard of housing and the standard of affordable housing units that it's delivered to influence the market from within. Now, it's still early days and you don't achieve market disruption in 12 or 18 months. It takes considerably longer than that. However, what Cornovi and Star have achieved in combination over the last couple of years has been far in excess of what we had previously been delivering through traditional models. So our role in market stewardship and market disruption is already having an impact on the overall delivery of social, affordable and low-cost home ownership properties in Shropshire, We have committed to continue that and to expand that. Business cases are regularly taken to the Star and Cornovi boards, and reports from both the HRA and Cornovi are regularly brought back to this council through various committees and ultimately to Cabinet and full council, and will continue to do that. But we are also, as I said before, performance monitoring the wider delivery of social, affordable and low cost ownership housing on a monthly basis now, including not just our own stock, but our partners, which has shown yearly, year on year increases, better delivery, better completion rates at this time last year, this time this year than this time last year, better start on site rates at this time this year than this time last year. So the policies we put in place, the market stewardship, the market disruption is helping to deliver an increased number of these units. So, in conclusion, it is a priority and it is a key performance indicator for us. There's an awful lot that sits underneath the headline KPIs and an awful lot of work that is done underneath those headline KPIs to focus in, to zero in on the detail and make sure that it's appropriate and targeted in the right places to maximum result. But we are doing that work. We're doing it successfully and it's making an impact.
Thank you. I'd just like to thank all Cabinet members for supporting this. I think it's really good and the feedback you've given is absolutely, well, overwhelming really. I'd like to say also the Task and Finish group that actually did the work on this. It's so good to see everybody cross-party working on this, and I don't underestimate this being driven forward by Councillor Macy for most of this. So thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Leader. At the last meeting, we talked about having our new STAR progress report coming to this meeting, so that's what's in front of you. The Shropshire Plan embodies our collective vision and priorities, and that's about aligning our resources to achieve positive outcomes for our residents, businesses and communities. Our commitment to transparency and accountability is evident in our robust performance management framework, which serves as a yardstick for measuring our progress. The report today offers a snapshot of the performance in the first quarter of 2023-24. This year holds particular significance for us as we focus on financial management to ensure a sustainable future. We're keeping a close watch on our finances, making sure they align with the goals set out in the Shropshire Plan, and our aim is to establish a modern, efficient and sustainable financial foundation for the Council over the next 5 years. While our immediate focus is on achieving a balanced budget in 23-24, it's crucial to recognise that this is just one facet of the Shropshire Plan. Our new performance management framework, rooted in evidence-based decision making, is designed to help us track our progress effectively. Currently, we're tracking over 30 key performance indicators, with 4 of them being highlighted in this report as exceptions. These KPIs will continue to evolve and refine throughout the year, with targets, tolerances and benchmarks established to gauge our performance. Embracing data as part of our decision making, we're using timely activity data to steer our actions, ensuring they align with our performance targets and expectations. Our performance and financial monitoring efforts have been more proactive, aided by interactive dashboards powered by Power BI. These dashboards offer an overview of our KPIs, including their status indicated by the red, amber, green ratings, trend informations and comparisons with our peers. Our commitment to transparency extends to addressing climate change. In this report, you'll find performance indicators related to our efforts to reduce net carbon emissions and increase renewable energy generation. Our approach demonstrates leadership at all levels of the Council, both as members and officers. We're dedicated to continual improvement in performance management and the delivery of the outcomes outlined in the Shropshire Plan. You'll note in Appendix A that there are more KPIs coming. I know the Transformation and Improvement Scrutiny Committee, with Claire Wild as its chair, is working with us closely on the future development of our systems, as she alluded to earlier. In conclusion, the report we present today reflects our unwavering dedication to forging a sustainable and prosperous future for Shropshire. I'd invite all members to delve into the performance dashboard that's now live online, as referred to earlier, alongside this report. And your insights and feedback are invaluable as you continue this journey of transformation and improvement. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Leader. Happily second and endorsed that the data sets and performance dashboards of Power BI have been a fantastic addition to the performance management measures that we have in place, certainly for housing and assets. They're both very actively used, and I work with officers looking at that data on a regular basis to make sure that we're keeping in line with our targets and achieving what we need to achieve. So absolutely endorse everything you said and happily second.
Thank you. And I would put a bit of a plea to group leaders, actually, if you could flag this up to your members, because I get the impression that not all members are aware that this is here, but it is an easy way of keeping up with what we're trying to do. And as Rob said, there will be further KPIs and there will be further discussion about those, mainly through Claire's committee, the Transformation Committee. But I think one of the things I would like to say, Rob, is thank you, because I know we have been waiting for these for a while, and I know that you've pushed very hard to make sure that these come forward. They might not be perfect at the moment, although actually I think they're getting there, but it's better to start with something and then move forward. So thank you for that. Okay, I see no hands in the room. All those in oh, sorry.
Thank you, Chairman. It was discussed briefly yesterday at the Scrutiny Committee, but under 8.1, percentage of pupils receiving first choice of schools secondary, and it's HP 25 and HP 26 in the report. It is noted that there is a large percentage drop this year in secondary pupils, and it's blaming it using as a reason the increased number of applications that were received in year. I have been highlighting this for the last 5 years at the local admissions forum, especially in Shrewsbury. The schools in the south part of Shrewsbury were all full. We knew this number was coming through the primary sector, and only latterly was action taken at one school to put an extension in. Pupils in Shrewsbury are having to attend a school within the 3 miles, but having to use transport, for which Shropshire Council is not legally obliged to do, which is incurring costs. I have maybe said here, but I think I've said it in council a number of years ago, that I had a resident who wanted their child to go to school in the south part of Shrewsbury. That child in year was offered a place in a school in the north of Shrewsbury. She could not afford to do that. So a house that she'd been offered in the south part of Shrewsbury, she had to turn down. Cost of living, pupils need the extra space that they need when they go to these schools. The HP 26 secondary schools is across Shropshire. I think it would be useful, and we're chasing it through the appropriate scrutiny committee, if we could see it more localised, because if Shrewsbury has an assessment for the whole of Shrewsbury, whereas a lot of other schools have a catchment area. So in Shrewsbury especially, it is a special case. If you live in Shrewsbury, you can be allocated a school in the north of Shrewsbury and be told, well, I'm sorry, that is within your catchment area, even though you may even live next door to a school, because that school is full, especially for an in-year move.
Okay.
Thank you, Chairman.
Okay, so one of the things that sorry, Julia, is your question relating to the same thing? No, because I was going to bring Tanya in at one point, but Kirsty's obviously not here today. But I do know that this year in particular, there is a 1-year bulge. So, when you look at the situation overall, we don't want to be providing new school for a one-year bulge. So, you know, the other thing I would say, we have been very proud, and I think we're still in the very, very top quartile in terms of secondary school choice, you know, against our comparators across the country, and certainly in the West Midlands. Yes, there is a drop this year, but that is entirely due to that one-year blip. I'll bring Tanya in at the end if you want to say anything. Julia.
Yes, I wanted to talk about the same indicator. That there are some KPIs on here which do not yet have targets assigned to them, and we heard at the scrutiny committee it's because they're baseline figures, but it's unfortunate that the ones where there is no target and therefore we can't tell whether we're succeeding or failing are things like pothole repairs and ombudsman cases upheld, which is one of our worst performances. So we do need to get targets in place, but my issue with this KPI is that I'm very concerned whether it's the right target. So if we look at how many families have been affected in the way that Councillor Roger Evans describes, and it's not just Shrewsbury, it's also Broseley and lots of other places, over 300 families did not get their first choice and struggled then to get their children physically to the school that they needed, and some of them were up to 5 miles away. So it's a large number of people for whom their lives have been very negatively impacted, and I'm surprised not to see an equalities impact assessment that explained who was affected and how. But my issue is, and you just said there, Leader, that we're in the top quartile for our neighbours. We are absolutely not performing well against our statistical neighbours. We are in fact one of the worst, and the target that's been attributed to this KPI, in my opinion, doesn't seem at all appropriate.
Can I stop you there then? So rather than have that discussion in here, take that information to Tanya about the targets that you want seen, because I don't think you're right when you say that we're statistically in the lowest quartile against our.
I didn't say that. I said that we're not in the highest. So
for this particular year.
Yes. So the target we were given is 82%, which is the England average, but includes urban authorities. I hope I don't need to explain why including urban authorities is not relevant to getting children to travel large distances in rural counties. If you look at the other rurals, which is listed on this indicator detail, they're all achieving well into the 90s. If we did achieve that target of 82%, we would be the lowest. We would be by far the lowest of any of our statistical neighbours, because it's not appropriate in a rural county to allocate second, third and fourth places. Imagine the distances that would mean for a rural county.
Okay, so can I suggest,
to be realistic, it needs to fit Shropshire.
Yeah, and Rob will take that back about the targets, but it will need to be in conjunction with David. Because that's not the impression I'm getting, I have to say. Tanya?
What I'd like to add, let's do a briefing for all members on the actual picture. It's been a tricky year, as it's been highlighted, and I would like to commend the team that has worked tirelessly over the last few months in placing our children into school placements. But it's a complex area. We have indeed increased capacity on this side of town, the south side of town, but let's do a proper briefing for all members on the whole picture.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Tanya. Okay, I have a proposer and I have a seconder. Rob, did you want to come back on some of that?
I just wanted to add one more thing that was very much sort of, you thanked me for driving this forward. But to be fair to the data team led by Helen, that they're having to do this, but they're having to coordinate with so many different departments across the council. And I think it's these specific issues where we can take things back and bring back these indicators, and that's where we'll work with scrutiny to try and get those spot on. But it's knowing what we want.
And so we suggest that that's done through the transformation and improvement.
I think at the moment that was the discussion. I think what we're going to try and look for is to establish some sort of system of how the KPIs get established and updated and so on. That was some of the discussion that was held at the scrutiny meeting, is we'd go away and have a look at how we do that.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Rob. Okay, I've got a proposal and a second. All those in favour? Thank you very much indeed. Moving on to item number 8, Financial Monitoring Report, Q1. Councillor Gwilym Butler.
Thank you, Leader. It's Councillor Gwilym Butler, Portfolio Holder for Finance and Corporate Resources. Leader, the following paper was discussed at length on Monday at Transformation Scrutiny. First for scrutiny to see it prior to Cabinet, and useful points were raised to be taken further under a task and finish group. I would like to use this opportunity to undertake reflection on how we have done over the first quarter and give reassurance on the state of the finances of Shropshire Council. The first quarter has exceeded our expectations, and officers across the organisation have worked tirelessly to create the current result. However, we are not and cannot be complacent. There is much to do. All staff need a pat on the back for this achievement, but I would like to thank the finance team and cabinet for their efforts, particularly over the summer period where we knew we couldn't take our finger off the pulse, and have had regular meetings and briefings almost on a business as usual basis, as this is an exceptional year of challenge. And we were and are determined to maintain focus and not lose momentum over the summer period. Let me make it perfectly clear. There is no indication of any imminent financial crisis. Any suggestion that there may be is misleading, politically charged, certainly very unhelpful, and causes concern and anxiety for service users and staff and all those we commission and partner with. Items like the Liberal Democrat post, Shropshire nears bankruptcy, total untruth. And headlines from another opposition leader in the Shropshire Star, 4 weeks from bankruptcy, untruth. It's almost as though they want us, the council, to fail and all its services that we deliver for residents. All I can say is shame on them. The senior team have undertaken emergency planning exercises, stress testing, the plans and identifying contingency arrangements in the event of unforeseen challenges or under delivery of known challenges. Existing governance and legal frameworks already provide extensive assurance around this. Recent headlines around the country are troubling, and we don't know if these other councils have measures in place or contingency plans already agreed. Fortunately, yesterday we saw Birmingham's troubling situation. The difference is we do. We have the mid-term financial strategy led by the Shropshire Plan. Furthermore to this, reserves are up 20 million from a better than expected settlement. The investment account is healthy at around 69 million. And as the following report shows, our teams are putting in place mitigation for the unforeseen further pressure around social care. The transparency around the reporting is improving, with monthly reporting coming on stream, and we are working well within our agreed timescales. In usual years, we state in Q1 a grave overspend and then try and manage it down. That's historically what's always the situation has been. Good financial management and getting leadership right has changed a lot of the culture, with a clear focus on the challenge from day one of the financial year and officers living within their budgets wherever possible from day one. It is a complete change. There will be hard decisions for us to make over the winter to close that final spending reduction, and I'm sure there will be many heated debates. My firm, determined aim is to continue safe financial control in Shropshire Council. The team is in control, and we will continue to deliver for our residents and transform into a modern, efficient, sustainable council for the future. I move the recommendations in 3.2 A to F. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Butler, and I will second that one. Councillor Evans.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm not going to make any political points, but what I am going to say is I noticed that in the performance indicators we just looked at, under HO6, it shows that there's 39 point something million pound shortfall. In this report, on page 36 of the cabinet, of the one that went to scrutiny, it's under Appendix 3. It shows delivered 34 million, savings still to be delivered 17. In HO6, it shows something very different, 39 million pound still to be there, which is adrift from it. It's getting these figures together in the different reports, and also as of a concern to me is in the report at 8.5, it says in order to address the budgetary pressures arising in social care, the service is actively pursuing demand management. There were task and finish groups set up yesterday at the at Monday, wasn't it, at the scrutiny committee. I would hope, and where the fear is amongst many opposition, especially opposition members and the residents that they're talking to, what does the word demand management mean? We have seen no definition, nothing there. It is saying that it will save £20.5 million in this current financial year. I don't know where that is. We need reassurance where that is and how it is going to be obtained, because if it isn't obtained, this council is in problem and it will have a sustainability problem into the next financial year. There is talk in the budget about transferring £20 million into the general reserves, and in this report it says that it's predicted as £5.6 million overspend by the end of the year. I know it's Q1 and hopefully it will improve, but it includes this £20.5 million of increased pressures in social care will be sorted out this year. I find no details, no way is that going to be done. I congratulate the finance team in Gwilym in being more open this year than in previous years. But we do need to know, because the Q2 report we will not see until November. It's too late. In the report, it says that there is quarterly, monthly reports, weekly reports to officers. Members do need reassurance. Residents need reassurance that this council is tackling it in a humane and social responsible way of doing it, and as I do as well, who take an interest in the finance. And please let us have more information before we have to wait for this Q2 in November. It is too late. Thank you, Chairman.
Councillor Chris Schofield.
Thank you, Leader. I'd also like to congratulate Councillor Gwilym Butler and James Walton and his team. When an opposition leader says, I'm not going to make a political statement, I'm afraid they've already been made, and that doubt has been put in the minds of the public. And what I actually feel sorry for is the staff at Shropshire Council, the morale, whether they're going to lose their jobs and everything. So I think the opposition leaders may do themselves a favour and retract the statements they made about Shropshire Council going bankrupt. And after the last day of Birmingham,
I have never said the council would be bankrupt.
That's been never. Used. I've been in the room when it's been used. But
the Liberal Democrat Post newspaper.
Yeah, thank you.
And when it comes to Birmingham, I don't think we should take any lessons from any Labour opposition leaders in this council chamber, quite frankly. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Councillor Schofield. James, did you want to just... do you want to deal with that at the end?
Could I just come back on Roger's point while we're talking about it? I'm led to believe that Table 1 sets out the apparently different values, and the demand management is at paragraph 8.5. So you can actually piece it together. If not, I suggest you contact Ben J and he'll clarify it for you.
Yeah. Yeah.
I note that it says there, but the how, the why, and the wherefores, the background detail for that, that's some sort of discussion, whether it's exempt or whatever, I don't mind. But it's knowing it, it is there. 20.5 is a lot of money, Chairman.
I understand
and
that.
It's how is that going to be attained?
And I think that is part of the task and finish group at scrutiny, and I think it's valid to offer this point here. But there's one major point, I think, the difference between the administration and the opposition in this council is that the administration totally support and trust our senior officers and don't have to question everything, because we trust what they are doing. And it is obvious that the opposition just don't trust what's put in front of them, and that is the difference.
Get that. Dean, then Councillor Buckley.
Thank you very much. My concern here is really around transparency, because we've got in this report a very useful page about how you're going to tackle the impending demand problems around adult services, and that's really good to know. But what's interesting is that the report did not go into the detail about how you had made the savings already made, and it took us quite a while to dig out actually what turned out to be sort of anecdotal, as if it was a surprise that you were even being asked, stories about how those savings have been made. Now, many of them actually were good news stories, so it's a bit of a surprise we weren't being told them. In particular, the fact that there was some real, finally, investment in preventative work, so that the costs of people leaving hospital, for example, were not so great. That's great. It's good that those things are happening, but they weren't actually in the report. We've just got a page which says this is the global saving in the different directorates. So my concern is about that, especially because when it gets to quarter 2, quarter 3, quarter 4, I think we can expect those savings to hurt our communities more. So my plea is that in the next reports we actually get a little bit more detail about how those savings are actually being made. And the final point I just make, which I made on Monday as well, is that it's really good to hear, as we did again only through questioning, that there'd been some more success in terms of grant application and using grant funding. And my proposal there, which was an idea that Greens had proposed in Sheffield, was that we establish an opportunities register, so that as well as identifying risks, we actually go directorate by directorate, actually having a list of what the opportunities out there are in terms of grant funding, so that we ensure that we are maximising those opportunities. And it was good to hear the CEO take that idea on board. Thank you.
Thank you, Gillian. I don't disagree with that at all, actually, not having that. Councillor Butler?
From my point of view, it's useful to just come back as some ask the questions, if that's okay. And Julian, I do take on board a lot of what you're saying. I think the transparency will come out in those task and finish groups, where you can actually pull them to pieces. Both yourself and Roger have said you're concerned that by the time quarter 2 performance comes to Cabinet in November, it will be too late. I have introduced monthly period reports. You will shortly be getting period 4. I haven't seen it yet. And then you'll get period 5. And then you'll get period 6 before you get the quarterly report. So by that time, and as that starts running, we will be able to see trends. And I'll be sharing those with you. It's not a problem. So you won't have to wait right until quarter 6 in November, quarter 2 in November.
No, I mean, you've made that clear. I can't remember what meeting it was, but you said that they would be monthly.
Because I need to see it monthly.
Yeah.
I can't wait for
and it was always intended.
And I'm not going to hide it from anybody.
It was always intended to share that in the same way that we shared quarter 1 in advance. Julia?
Yes, so it was, I agree with Councillor Dean. It was an interesting debate at the Transformation Committee where we were trying to understand where the £11 million has been saved in the first 12 weeks, £1 million per week. What I understood by the end of the session is that a large bulk of it is through capitalising staff costs, so reclassifying staff who work on highways projects or transformation projects, simply moving them off the revenue books onto the capital books, which is effectively an accountancy trick. So there is no pain in terms of service cut. It's just a different way of describing it. So in my world, that is much more welcome than cutting services. What's interesting is that in your capital report, which we'll come on to later, you state that this amounts to just over £3 million per year. So therefore, we need to understand where do the other £47 million of saving come from. If your capital report can only find £3 million worth of capitalisation, you can't claim more of them in this other report. In other words, your two reports have got to match. The second area that you have already made savings, and it was clear that you've banked them early in the year rather than later, was around deleting vacancies. Unfortunately, I don't share your appreciation of this particular trick. I don't think it is a saving. I think it's a false economy. I think if you speak to staff in the authority, they do not want to be doing more and more work. They want to feel supported. They're already exhausted. They're already under pressure and understaffed. And to come back to Chris Schofield, if you are concerned about the staff, you should speak to them. They received a briefing from you in July saying that you had high confidence that you'd saved £17 million. They got another briefing in August saying they're very sure that we've saved £11 million. And then today they're hearing that we're going to be deleting all vacancies, so they won't be receiving any colleagues to burden some of the work and shoulder some of the additional work that they're under because of the pressure.
More untruths, leader.
Yeah. Because we have never said for 1 minute that we are deleting all vacancies. That's not what we have said.
It's written in the strategy. Every department.
Not deleting every single vacancy.
Every department, you'll save £1 million by deleting vacancies at the start of the year.
In that strategy, we are deleting every vacancy.
It says you will delete.
Does it say we are deleting every vacancy, Councillor Buckley?
I'd love you to tell me how many you're deleting.
Yes or no? It's a very simple question.
I think you're deleting the majority of your vacancies.
No. shows exactly what we're talking about in terms of the staff.
Yeah.
Because you come up with grandiose expressions at these councils.
Your own strategy, leader.
But I am not deleting every single post, Councillor Buckley.
But do you concede that in
way.
every department you are saving £1 million
We are
by
looking
deleting
at what
posts?
we have had on the books for year in, year out, and have never filled.
I'll just briefly come in, leader. Since we became a unitary council, every year this council has been holding around 5% vacancies across the board, year on year, and that money for those vacancies, if they were put into place, has always been in people's budgets. We will always have that level. So instead of putting the money into the budgets, we take it out as a saving. That'd be right, James. Thank you. James is nodding. Yeah. So we are not deleting things. Staff that we need, we are having. We are recruiting. So why do we put on Facebook 84 vacancies, I think, last week?
So what would be really helpful for clarity is how many, through the chair, sorry, Chair, what would be really helpful for clarity from Gwilym Butler would be to know how many posts are being deleted and what value that puts into the savings budget, because I share my colleague's view that we haven't been told. We're told globally savings will be made by deleting vacancies, and when we ask for the detail,
it's all in the MTFS, and there's 101 lines of savings.
And in there, I read every department will lose £1 million through deleting vacancies. So that's my understanding.
But by making the statements that you've made, you're not picking up on what Gwilym has said, which is some of these vacancies have been there for years.
That's irrelevant, because if you don't fill it, you stop it.
Because the budget is still within that department.
Let's stop this now.
But it's still reconciled at the end of the year. I welcome if you can confirm the number and the value, that will clarify.
Let's stop this now, because what I don't want to do is I don't want any more running tales which upset and worry, as Gwilym said, not just the staff, but our partners as well. The one thing I would like to say about this report, and I think it's particularly pertinent today. You know, we've seen in the last 3 days, 3 councils say that they are going to put forward a 114. I think what's really disappointing, and this is where I'm going to say to Gwilym and to James and to the finance team and to every cabinet member around this table who's working so hard, the difference is we have a plan and we are working to that plan. What I saw at Stoke is really disappointing. I saw a Conservative administration with a plan in the same way that we have. And the Labour administration there has been in a 100 days and has thrown in the towel because it's just too tough. This is tough. This is difficult. But if we don't do this, what is going to happen in Birmingham and in Stoke and in Suffolk, if they call a 114, will be catastrophic. So having a plan, we could have done that. We could have sat back and said, no, it's too difficult. Let's just call a 114.
And to be truthful, we had that conversation.
And we did have that conversation. But we have a plan. We have a plan, and it's tough. And the staff are working so hard to achieve this plan. They don't need to see bunnies running all over the place by what I would call inappropriate political statements.
Could you bring clarity?
Councillor Buckley, I didn't bring you back in.
Leader,
Councillor Buckley, I did not bring you back in.
Clarity would reduce that.
I have a proposer and I have one.
I can, Chairman. Yes, Shropshire Council has a plan. So did Bournemouth have a plan. If you read the financial press in the last few days, there was a change in administration in May, and the auditors, Grant Thornton, say the plan was not being delivered. What I want to see is the plan and how it is being delivered. That's why I asked about demand management through the task and finish group, whatever. I, as an opposition person and as a councillor, and have residents coming to me asking, how is Shropshire going to do that? I don't know. And that's the information that I am asking for.
Last point, Councillor Butler.
Yeah, thank you. I welcome the conversation. However, a lot of what has been said is actually deliberately misleading. Around the capitalisation, anything to do with transformation can also be capitalised, not just what's in the capital strategy. There is those over 100 lines in the midterm financial strategy which will deliver the savings. So why we're just worried about the 3 million in the capital strategy and everything else? It's just this flitting around as if they don't actually understand what we're doing. That's all I'll say, Chair, and I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you, Gwen. I have a proposer, I have a seconder. All those in favour? Thank you very much indeed. Item number 9, Gwilym, it's you up again. It's the Treasury Management Update Q1 23-24.
Bear with me. Just get to the right screen, Leader. Thank you, Leader. Again, this is part of housekeeping, which we have to bring on a regular basis. I'm not going to go on in great detail. Again, interest rates have gone up, which at the moment we're getting better return on our investments. Obviously, there may be revenue implications moving forward, which we will keep a steady eye on if we do tend to borrow. I'd just like to move the recommendations in 3.1, please, Leader.
Do I have a seconder for that?
Can I second it? Would you like me to speak now or do I wait?
Well, you can speak now if you want to, Mr. Jones.
I haven't got anything written down.
Oh.
It's a bit of a problem, isn't it? This is my first cabinet meeting, which is very exciting, obviously. And I was a bit reticent to join the cabinet. I did worry immensely about the budget and how we were going to manage, and having spoken to Gwilym at length and seeing what he's done now, I'm very reassured that I've made the right choice to be on the cabinet and work with a team that's going to go forward. And I think when you get people saying bankruptcy in the meetings and stuff like that, it doesn't help anybody at all. And I do hope that people can't see me online, but I'm going to pat Gwilym on the back because he's next to me. I can't pat James Walton because he's a bit further round, but I hope that Gwilym can pass them pats on the back to all the organisation who've done a cracking job. And I think that is all I wanted to say on that. So
brilliant. I'll ask you to second again, Councillor James. No hands. Well, I have a proposer, I have a seconder. All those in favour? Thank you very much indeed. Moving on to item number 10, which is the capital strategy. Councillor Gwilym Butler.
Thank you, Leader. Councillor Gwilym Butler, Portfolio Holder for Finance and Corporate Resources. You'll be pleased to know this is the last report I've got today. This is another first for the financial openness, is to bring forward a mid-term capital strategy as promised to allow all members to be engaged in the development of opportunities across the county where identified. And I know this was something that was brought up in the alternative budget process where there may be capital projects people want to bring forward. And by having a mid-term view, if people want to reassess it through task and finish, they can actually see the implications to revenue should they wish to put forward a future alternative budget. Following on from our finance update, it is also reassuring that we can still maintain a capital strategy with its associated costs well within our current revenue budget. And these will be stringently monitored moving forward in relation to cost of delivery and borrowing if required. And my heart does go out to, I'm not being political, all those counts that have issued a 114, because all their capital projects will go out the window. No new swimming pools, no new library machines, no new anything else, but we are keeping a stringent hold on this, keeping it going, but finger on the pulse again. I'd briefly like to touch on item 8, if I may, the town centre redevelopment, to which we have now been awarded investment into the town centre of 18.7 million. If we had not bought the shopping centres, this would not have happened. So effectively, we've had over a third of the cost of what shopping centres cost us, let alone the revenue we've had from the shopping centres over that period. We've actually had a third of that cost come from central government in new investment into the town. And I'll just go back to the Liberal Democrats' post. 51 million wasted buying up Shrewsbury shopping centres. Oh, it was not a waste of money to me. Anyway, if we had not bought the shopping centres, this would not have happened. This huge external government investment into Shrewsbury, as I said, is already over a third of what the shopping centres cost. With the Darwin thriving and the imminent redevelopment of the Pride Hill shopping centre, does the opposition still think it was a waste of money? And I think it was called a vanity project by Councillor Buckley in Shrewsbury. I believe, and always have had the vision for our county town, it will take time, but unlike other major towns with boarded up shopping centres and overseas landlords, Shrewsbury is attracting external funding, both from central Conservative government, but also from the private sector. People believe in Shrewsbury like we do, the Conservative administration. No waste of money, no vanity project, but place shaping to deliver the Shropshire plan for an even better, brighter Shrewsbury. Thank you. I move the report. The recommendations 3.1 to 3.5.
I endorse everything Willem said. The capital strategy and the pipeline of capital projects has been quite a labour of love for not just the people around this table, but for officers across departments in terms of bringing forward the projects that we believe will make the utmost difference to our residents, whilst trimming projects that don't have as much of a direct impact on the lives of our residents in order to be able to bring forward the most important projects. But Willem's absolutely right to focus on Shrewsbury Town Centre and on the different views that opposition groups and opposition leaders have had on Shrewsbury Town Centre over the past few years. And I would just ask them, and I would invite replies, although I don't expect any, why do they believe it's acceptable to abandon Shrewsbury Town Centre, the economic heart of Shropshire, to manage decline, whereas we, on the other hand, are backing Shrewsbury Town Centre to regenerate Shrewsbury Town Centre, to boost the economy of not just Shrewsbury, but Shropshire.
Thank you, Councillor Cow. Councillor Evans.
Thank you, Chairman. I'll leave Councillor Buckley to answer some of it about the Shrewsbury shopping centres. But I was a member when the council made the decision to buy the shopping centres. Many members, including myself, argued we were overpaying it. And that's the argument. If you look at the value put on the shopping centre now, if you look at the value of the shopping centres which were being sold back then, and companies were moving out of shopping centres because they could predict the future. Shropshire Council was given a single tender opportunity to buy it. That should have rung bells immediately. Single tender opportunity, not market value. But I will move on from that in the report that's before us now. So it was a bad investment. We were promised a 10% return on the 50 million, £5 million per year. After repaying some of that money to purchase a shopping centre, we were going to get a 5% return towards our revenue budget. Those were the statements that were made in the reason for buying it.
Councillor Evans, can I stop you for a minute? I accept what you're saying. I absolutely do accept what you are saying. But we can't turn the clock back.
I understand that, Chairman, and that's what I'm referring to is a report that's before us today, and I wanted to pick up a couple of items in it. All right. And it's under Appendix C, and it's amendments made to the priority scheme modules. Yes. I note that on my page 13, it might be page 1 of Appendix C, it says that target operating model, Shirehall refurbishment, 1.085 million. Can I be reminded what that is? But I also note that on page 2 of it, Northwest Relief Road, there, it says that the revised cost, February 23, £28 million. All the reports I've seen up to now says 25 million. So is that the £28 million September 23 or revised cost February 23? Because I presume we're still spending money on the Northwest Relief Road. I want it stopped until we secure the business case and planning application, but it's still increasing.
Councillor Evans, we can't provide a business case and everything else that surrounds it without going to planning permission. You can't put a court can't be put cart before the horse.
If I can, Chairman, the planning application has been removed several times, and I note that North Planning Committee, which was scheduled for September, has now been cancelled. So the earliest is going to be October, and I note the LEP funding that was forward is due to be looked at again by that in the autumn. So I wonder where we are with even that funding.
Councillor Evans, the planning date that you may have seen has been cancelled. That's not to say that another date will not be put in. Thank you. Councillor Buckley, do you want to speak?
Yes, I do. Lots of our remarks about the purchase of the shopping centre is not just whether it was value for money, but also at the time and since then, we've often compared the relative cost of retaining Shirehall as a civic base compared to the cost of what will be the new civic hub in Shire, down in Smithfield on Riverside. And if you do look at the final page of that Appendix C, we can see that 3 sets of costs are allocated against those combined projects. So it says the Shrewsbury Riverside development, 53 million, Pride Hill repurposing. Should we add that to the costs of the Shopping Hill disasters? Another 42 million.
I would refute the argument about it being a disaster.
Investment. And the third one on that final page is called Refocus Shirehall Relocation Civic Centre, 41.6 million pounds. If I just did the back of a fag packet calculation of those 3, it's in excess of 136 million pounds.
Okay,
so
thanks.
3 projects.
Another point.
Yeah, I'm asked what my views were about the town centre projects. The concern we have is that we were told at the time it was cheaper to demolish the current Shirehall and move the civic centre down to Smithfield, and we're looking at a total cost of those 3 items of 136. It's nearly a third of the total capital programme. What worries me is this is the only report where I see the word aspirational. When we talk about delivering services, we talk about difficult decisions and how hard it is and the cuts we have to make. When it comes to investing in shiny buildings we might not need, it's called aspirational.
Okay, so as I said, I'll go back to what I started to say with Councillor Evans, is that what you're describing, a lot of it was what happened in the past, which, you know, we're not magicians. None of us around this table can do anything about that. What I find really quite disturbing is that we have a here that is no longer fit for purpose. Yes, we could spend a significant number of millions on it and make it fit for purpose, but actually it's no longer fit for our purpose. We had 3 shopping centres in the town, one of which was already pretty much, I don't say derelict, but empty. The other one was rapidly emptying. What would your plan be for those centres? Because that's what I find really difficult, is that we constantly hear we'd stop this, we wouldn't do this, we wouldn't do that. That's a political statement, I get that. But nowhere have I heard what you would do to improve the future of Shrewsbury Town Centre. And I would have thought above everybody in this room that you would be backing investment into Shrewsbury, into the county town. I really struggle to get my head around the fact that actually you are saying these are vanity projects. These are not vanity projects. These are economic benefit future proofing. And above everybody else, I'm really surprised that you can't see that. However, that's, you know, that's fine. You know, I've said it time and time again, I will defend the purchase of the shopping centres to the hilt, because if we hadn't have purchased them, all 3 of them would have been closed and boarded up, just like Rackham's, just like loads of other shopping centres across the town. Again, just like the Shropshire plan, we have a plan for the town centre. We are getting an enormous amount of external interest. Government have already funded it. There are other funding streams that we are close to. We are investing in the county town, because when the county town flourishes, and it does flourish, there's no doubt about that. Shrewsbury is a flourishing town. When the county town really flourishes, the rest of the county flourishes along with it. Councillor Carroll.
Thank you, Leader. I think something that Councillor Buckley said has very, very much disturbed me, because it is, okay, maybe more than one thing, but one thing specifically in relation to this conversation, and that is the seeming inability to comprehend that not everything that goes on in the Shrewsbury Riverside redevelopment is a replacement council office. By combining, I can't work out whether combining the sums of the three distinct project lines listed is a total misunderstanding of what the aspiration for the regeneration and redevelopment of the riverside is, in which case I can suggest a number of Labour Shrewsbury-based colleagues who maybe could help to enlighten you on that. Or is it a disingenuous attempt to make this appear as though the administration is overspending on its own office facilities, which is absolutely not the case in comparison to the cost of the refurbishment of Shirehall, as has been explained ad infinitum, in fact, almost ad nauseum. Now, I don't know which of those two is the answer to this misunderstanding, but it's not a helpful misunderstanding to you, I would suggest, or to the council, or to the public, in terms of understanding what the aspiration for the Smithfield and Riverside redevelopment is. If that you are so implacably opposed to this regeneration effort, I wonder whether, if you had been where you seek to be as Member of Parliament for Shrewsbury, in negotiations with government ministers over levelling up funds, I wonder whether you would have been as supportive as the current Member of Parliament for Shrewsbury was in holding 6 separate meetings with ministers to convince them of the value of investing levelling up fund monies into Shrewsbury Town Centre to support the town's economy. And from everything you've said, the only conclusion I can draw is that you would not have been supporting Shrewsbury. You would not have been backing the town. You would not have done what the current MP has done to secure the funding to develop the Riverside Shopping Centre. And that is a very sad state of affairs to find ourselves in.
Chair, if I may respond to those allegations, please.
Councillor Dean.
I need to respond to those
Councillor Dean.
allegations, Chair.
Councillor Dean.
I need to respond, Chair.
Councillor
I
Dean.
think it's reasonable that a response is made first.
There are allegations in a public meeting, Chair.
Allegations?
Those are allegations about me in a public meeting.
Allegations, they were statements.
It's a recorded meeting, Chairman. I'd like to respond to those allegations, please.
But after Councillor Dean has spoken. Councillor Dean.
So we were asked about our views. So let's make it very simple. Was the investment in shopping centres at the time based on a business case which was largely around the income a wise one? Obviously not, because the income didn't transpire. Do we need to regenerate the Riverside? Yes, we do. Is moving out of Shirehall and building a civic centre on the Riverside a wise move? To be honest, I'm not yet convinced. You say that we've ad nauseum looked at the Shirehall case. I'm not convinced that we have. I don't think we've seen an adequate measurement of the carbon impact of moving. And as the costs shift, which they are already doing in terms of the redevelopment into the town centre, I'm still not convinced that this is a wise move. So on that one, I'm agnostic because I don't think we've been provided with the evidence that's sufficient to make a decision as to whether actually a shift out of Shirehall to a civic centre makes sense. That doesn't mean we don't need to regenerate the Riverside. Of course we do, and I'm part of the stakeholder board for that and very excited to see some development of public space in particular and green space in that area, which will improve the public realm.
Councillor Buckley and then Councillor Butler.
Councillor Dean has put it perfectly well that all the opposition members have made our position very clear that we welcome investment in the centre. Particularly what we have welcomed is the improvements that will come around reducing congestion and the additional support around what will become either a bus hub or a bus centre. We've all been very clear that that's needed. The point upon which we do not agree, and we've repeated it many times, is whether there was a need to move the civic hub from here down to the centre. In my opinion, to have more retail and private investment in the centre next to those that Riverside Walk would be ideal, and that's what's in the big town plan. I've had full briefings from the town council. I'm fully aware of what is in there, and in terms of understanding the grid in front of me, I'm very clear that we need to first demolish the existing site, which is the line which will cost us 53 million, before you can then relocate the civic centre, which is 41 million. So it's quite logical to add the cost of the demolition to the cost of the relocation, and I think it's disingenuous of you to pretend they're not linked. The 42 million of the shopping centre was a response to Gwilym, who wants us to believe that we've only paid once, that we've had lots of income against it, and there's been no further costs. We're staring at another 42 million costs. It's what we would call good money after bad. I would ask you, please, Dean Carroll, not to make accusations about me in my other roles. I know you personally are disappointed that you don't have such a role, but it's not fair of you to mix up our two different roles here. Thank you.
Right. I don't think there's many of us who are actually around this table when we actually bought the shopping centres. And I'd just like to, from memory, and I'm sure James will agree with me, the business case for actually buying the shopping centres wasn't about the income. It was about the long-term vision and future of Shrewsbury. And I think I said that and stood up in council at the time. Do not look at the short-term benefit from the income from these shopping centres. You have to have the vision to place shape over 10, 20, 30 years. And if somebody like the council does not take that lead, who has the ability to take that lead, the others won't follow. Now, part of this funding and the capital it's in the capital scheme there, and perhaps I'll touch on the Civic Hub. We're saying £37 million for the Civic Hub, but do remember it is not just a Civic Hub for Shropshire Council. It may well be for the police, DWP, Age UK, and many, many other partners, so the people of the county town have a one-stop shop for everybody they have to deal with. Also, it is to get us in there as an anchor point so others will follow and other development will follow. And I'm purposely made it a point that the building will be designed so it can have multiple uses. So there's nothing to say it might be something else in 50 years' time as we change as an organisation. But if the council doesn't take the lead on the regeneration of Shrewsbury, nobody else will follow. We've already seen the Luff funding. I know for a fact there's a lot of private sector, major organisations who are excited about Riverside. And that will bring tens of millions of pounds into Riverside and may well help us with the financing of that capital programme. I move the recommendations.
I could go on about this in the history, but what I want to say, and maybe in another venue I could, about how and why it was bought. I differ to Gwilym's Butler's, Councillor Butler's memory. My memory is a little bit different. However, what I'm going to say is that yes, we do own the shopping centres. Yes, we do have to do something with it. I would be looking at what Shropshire Council is good at, what Shropshire Council should be doing, and what the private sector should be doing. And I would look at partners. And I can remember having a discussion at council about this, that I would be looking at partners to actively do it and us putting the land in as the contribution towards it, but asking for their finances in it, not using Shropshire Council finances, using private enterprise partnership to actually work together to do it. That's in any business you're in. You should always ask yourself, what business are you in, and not get diverted into property investment. We should not be in property investment unless it's for an economic benefit, and that may be where we're differing a little bit about why we bought the shopping centres. Okay, and that's what I say, my memory is a little bit different. However, but yes, we do need to invest, but I will be out there searching for them now to see what they come up, and I would involve them in the discussions and the planning for it, not start to say, we want to plan and we are doing this with that, this, that and the other. Let's get around the table, and I would do it cross-party as well, in openness. If I can, Chairman, there used to be a forum at which the group leaders sat with the management of the shopping centres.
That was entirely around the
Development of the shopping centres, and that was stopped by only a few years ago.
centre of, thank you Ian, to bring back life to the town centres. 99% of the time, the local council is the lead partner. And there's a reason for that. And it's what Gwilym said, it's about that anchor tenancy. That is what is so important. Well, last word from you.
Thank you, Leader. I think everything's been covered. It's a useful debate, and I'm pleased that I've brought it forward mid-term, you know, for transparency, and welcome any further questions through the task and finish group, which I know Claire's going to be doing. Thank you.
Thank you. So we have a proposer, we have a seconder. All those in favour? Thank you very much. Moving on to item number 11, annual customer feedback complaints report. Councillor Rob Macy.
Thank you, Leader. Each year the council produces an annual customer feedback report, and despite the bracket saying complaints, it does encompass complaints, comments and compliments that are formally submitted to the council via its customer feedback process. MP inquiries are also included in the report. In the fiscal year 22-23, our organisation received a total of 2,702 cases of customer feedback, a testament to our commitment to open communication and continuous improvement. While the balance of feedback still sees complaints forming the majority, it's encouraging to see a reduction in complaint numbers for areas like highways by 8%, demonstrating improvement. It fell from 27% of all complaints in 21-22 down to 19 in 22-23. One pivotal benchmark for assessing our customer feedback handling is the average time taken to respond to complaints. In the past, we faced challenges in meeting our corporate standard of responding to complaints within 30 working days for stage 1 complaints. However, this year's report indicates that our focus in this area has borne fruit, with the average response time reducing to 26 days, surpassing our target. Nonetheless, we acknowledge that long-standing complaints often linked to complex issues remain a concern and a priority for improvement. Furthermore, it's reassuring to note that only a small fraction of complaints progress beyond stage 1, indicating the effectiveness of our internal processes. In total, 61 complaints were referred to the local government and social care ombudsman in 22-23, of which 20 had detailed investigations, with 16 upheld. To give you a scale of that, that represents 0.01% of total complaints investigated by the council, signifying our commitment to resolving issues at the earliest stages. The Ombudsman has recommended a meeting with Shropshire Council to discuss the annual report in the year ahead, and this discussion will be helpful to develop a more robust understanding of the Ombudsman's expectations. I encourage you to consider the recommendations contained within the report and the actions it contains. The recommendations are designed to bolster our performance in customer feedback handling and strengthen our commitment to our community. In conclusion, the report underscores the significance of effective feedback management in our organisation. It helps us manage risks, identify trends and improve our services. It aligns with our broader goals as outlined in the Shropshire Plan to create a healthy organisation. Thank you.
Thank you, Leader. I'd like to thank the portfolio holder for the report and just pick out a couple of items with regard to the highways. Page 3, 8.5, there has been a marked reduction in the volume of complaints about highways and transport, which now account for 19% of complaints, down from 27% from the previous year. I've previously alluded to the drop in potholes outstanding from 5,474 3 months ago, down 21% to 4,344 week ending just recently in the 4th of September. There is a marked improvement in the way that Andy Wild is running this highways team, and his data-based approach to how he looks at cutting costs and investing in the service is something that we should be very, very proud of. And I'd just like to put that on record. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Rowlands.
Yeah, that wasn't me. Thanks very much. It is clear sometimes that the only thing some residents dislike more than potholes is potholes being fixed. But what What I have done, I've already sent an email to Andy Wilde about the A53 and the extensive work that was carried out over the summer on the A53, which has made major improvements, but the traffic was never held up for more than a minute in the way they done it. They didn't have to close the road. They done it in a very civilised way, and that attracted, as far as I'm aware, no complaints. And it's there's a marked difference when you cross the border into Staffordshire and the state of the A53. So I'd just like to make that congratulate them on that work. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, I suppose a couple of things that I'd like to pick up. I think I can tell, and I'm again, this is around highways, is that the amount of emails I get in my inbox have almost disappeared completely. And I'm looking at Chris Schofield when I say this, because the day before yesterday, Monday, I actually had an email from somebody asking me to pass on their thanks to a planning officer. Now that's unheard of, let's be honest. Very few times do planning officers get thanks, and you need to pass that on. But I think it is indicative that people are appreciating, the situation. I think Rob would be the first to admit we're not out of the woods by any means, and the meeting with the social care ombudsman in a different way, which I think is an interesting one for us. But we will get there. Okay, I have a proposer, I have a seconder. All those in favour? Thank you very much indeed. Moving on, is it me? Yes, I think it might be. Announced that we will be entering into a four-way partnership with our neighbouring councils, that being Powys County Council, Monmouthshire, Herefordshire, Unitary, and ourselves. We've always had good relationships with these councils, but I suppose conversations led to a sort of more formal thinking, if you like. If I'm honest, it started with conversations. Cabinet members will be aware that we had some discussions with Powys County Council about how we could better work together. Those particular discussions were around health and social care and levelling up bids, but we started to have further discussions, and I'm going to sing the praises for once of Mr. Barrow and Mr. Begley, who have taken this idea of us working with our partners in a more formal way and have run with it. And let's just say that a formal partnership was suggested, but this formal partnership covers 80% of the Welsh border, the Welsh and English border. It also covers nearly 800,000 people. It's a really sparsely populated area, but the thing about it is that we all have exactly the same issues. The transport issues in Shropshire are no different than the transport issues in Hereford, are no different than in Monmouthshire, are no different in Powys. The other point is that residents and businesses and visitors, they don't see a red line between Wales and England, and they certainly don't see county borders. In fact, for a lot of our residents who live down on that border, they're crossing it on a daily basis and don't give it 2 minutes thought. And when individual organisations look at individual challenges, and again, I'm going to use transport as an example, when we look at transport in our individual cases, we're missing a trick. And that came out very clearly when we first started having these meetings with the leaders and the chief execs. I'm not saying for 1 minute that this partnership is a panacea for all the woes and all the challenges that we've got, but surely it has to be an improvement. We talk a lot about infrastructure, we talk a lot about funding, but actually it's far more than that. We are in very early stages still. So infrastructure, sort of road, rail, transport, skills, economic growth and visitor economy are the things that immediately came out when we discussed them. But it's other challenges too, I suppose. There's the other challenges about, especially for those who live in Powys, they share our health system too. There are no ties in the partnership, so we can work with anybody. Our partners can work with anybody. Actually, it's a bit of an open door as well, and I know I'm probably going to talk out of turn, but I know that there are conversations have been had with Wrexham, and that would actually give us, I believe, 100% of the border if that was the case. So nobody's shut out. Nobody's locked in, if you like. I think for me, the reaction from Westminster and from the Welsh Government has been really positive, but it's the genuine optimism from all of the leaders and all of the chief execs. This is the first stage of the formal process. Once approved, this will then go to Council in September, and our partners in Monmouth are taking their report to Cabinet this afternoon, and then Hereford and Powys will follow. There will be an official signing of the agreement sometime in October, probably somewhere right on the border where all three, at least three of the four meet. And as the press quote says, and I do like this, Shropshire Council are achieving what the Normans, the Romans and the Plantagenets failed to achieve. It is a start. There is, you know, there's no hard and fast rules around this, but I think what we're seeing is the ability to harness that real partnership working going forward. I'm quite happy to propose this. I presume I have a seconder.
I'm happy to second. Can I speak as well?
Yes, of course you can.
Thanks very much. Obviously, a lot of my portfolio from climate change and particularly transport has significant hopeful, optimistic benefits from this. I was starting in London yesterday for a meeting from Midlands Connect, which all our MPs, all Shropshire MPs were involved in, and also people from Herefordshire as well. And it's pretty apparent that we all have the same problems in transport, and that cross-border piece particularly, a lot of our residents, particularly in the west, who do commute in and out of Wales on a daily basis, particularly those who've got bus passes that aren't recognised one side of the border or another. So there's a number of good things that can come out of this, and I think it's very optimistic, and I'm happy to second.
Thank you, Councillor Lenz. I've got Councillor Cecilia Motley.
Thanks very much, Chair. I think this is a great development. I really do. We did have a very productive meeting some while ago. But the fact that we've got such a long shared movement, I think really does give us opportunities for partnership working on a scale which we would never have sort of really thought about before. And I think particularly in terms of the fact that so many different characteristics that we have are shared with those other authorities, not least rurality, not least difficulties in healthcare and access to healthcare, not least ambulance waiting times, all these kind of issues which I think between us all we should be able to get together and work hard on, possibly raise some joint funding to try and ameliorate. And I think that this is a really good development and really innovative too. So I really welcome it. Thank you.
Just briefly, I really welcome this. Coming from the south of the county, close to the Herefordshire border, I know there is a lot of residents there that use the services of Herefordshire for many things. Even the people, residents of Ludlow, for example, have to use the DWP in Leominster. And I think there's a golden opportunity here for us to open up this way of working with partners across the whole territory once we've got the territory up and running. Following on the history lesson, Leader, does beg the question of whether we still need Ludlow Castle, I guess. But on a serious note, as I have the portfolio holder that undertakes members and member development, I know Roger will probably be keen on this because it's always a concern of general membership, is what will be the role and the involvement of general members in this council with this process, and how will they be involved? Because I think it's very important.
Pick that up at the end. So, Councillor Julian Dean.
Thank you very much. I welcome the objectives that are listed under 7 around nature, energy and climate adaptation in particular, and transport and digital transformation. It's good to see those are our key objectives. And I do wonder, I suppose, whether, you know, we've had a recent history of not of a lack of success around bids for bus improvements, and this whole area is, you know, the future for public transport in this area is clearly going to be reliant on much better bus connectivity. So is there an opportunity here to revisit the way we are making those bids to make that a more realistic option? And my final bit is just to say, you know, what can we be assured of some transparency on this? There's a bit of a history I was reading about in Suffolk of councils, various leaderships getting together and deciding on all sorts of spending of business rates in camera. I'm hoping that the partnership will be open and will be transparent and will allow the communities to have an influence on its outcomes.
Yeah, thanks, Councillor. Councillor Morris.
Thank you, Leader. Again, I'd just like to congratulate everyone involved in this. It strikes me as the portfolio holder for highways that all sort of the political leaders within these groups have an interest in bypasses and things like that. So I was just wondering whether or not there'd be some shared learnings across those particular areas. I wondered what your view on that would be.
There may well be. Yes, thank you, Councillor Morris. Councillor Schofield, then Councillor Macy.
Well, living on what they used to call the Wild West on the border, some people, a lot of visitors that come don't actually know they're in England. They think they've reached Wales. Because a lot of the names in Oswestry are actually in Welsh. And some of them are Cork, something Cork, which means red. They've been burnt down. And I think there's a petition even to this day of 12,000 signatures to take Oswestry back into Wales. So I really welcome this, being a Welshman myself, the most prominent, predominantly a British person. I welcome this, especially on the healthcare, as Councillor Motley, which I know that Owen Patson used to work really well on with the health service. So we have to make sure that ambulance, it works both ways, which I'm sure you will do, Leader. Yeah. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Macy.
I think my final thing is, yeah, in a division that borders onto Wrexham, I would certainly encourage them to get involved with it, because, as you say, it's just a porous thing that people cross through. And I think the other benefits I think we'll see from this is I've already seen a couple of people who are involved with our Parish Pass partnership who are keen to go and share their learning over the border with organisations that side. And it's just that them having somewhere of they could approach us to say, could you give us a contact? Could you make that connection for us and so on? So if other groups and the tourism industry take this up, hopefully there are many other benefits that can come through it outside of direct council services.
Yeah. Thank you, Bob. Councillor Evans, then Councillor Jones.
Thank you, Chairman. I think any councillor should be supporting this, but I echo Councillor Butler's comment that we do need involvement. It has to be led by the leaders of the councils. Yeah, okay, they are the leaders of the councils, but I would ask all the leaders to actually involve other members in it, especially those who are living on the borders. We have a transparent border. Let's take away the border altogether as much as we possibly can. There is a Welsh government and an English government under Parliament, whichever. But yeah, we do need to work together for the benefit of our residents on both sides. And health is a good example of it in the what we want in Shrewsbury for our hospital does depend on the use that is made of it by residents from Wales coming over to give us that critical mass, to give consultants the work that is needed for them to retain their professional qualifications. So we do work together already in certain areas. Let's improve on it and build on it because it has got to be of benefit.
Absolutely. Thank you, Councillor Evans. Councillor Jones.
Well, staying visited by Beckham's farm in Marrygate Hill, trying to buy flat lands in Shropshire. So I'm thinking it's only paid to myself again. But I've got quite a few
border, because those buses do this all the time. And that was actually one of the conversations that I had with Jonathan Lester, who's the new leader at Hereford. But actually what we were talking about was completely echoed by the leader of Powys, because it's the same thing. So the trick is going to be, and part of the reason for this formal agreement is to show government that we mean, both governments, that we mean absolute business. Because if I'm absolutely honest, the reason this started was a chance conversation between myself and Craig Williams, who is the MP for Powys, over the Montgomery Canal bid for the levelling up. So they put, the Welsh Government or Powys Council put in a bid to the government for this levelling up money, which is brilliant, and they got it, and they got all this money to do their part of the canal. But they weren't allowed to include the 2 miles the other side of the border. So in effect, you've got all this canal, all going to be restored, but actually the economic benefits aren't going to be there because there's 2 miles, and that is daft. And the government have talked long and hard about the Marches growth corridor in terms of economic growth. So taking this forward is really, really important. The other thing, Julian, forgive me if it was you that suggested this to me, or somebody suggested to me about a solar collective, where actually the bigger the area, if you bid for solar with a bigger area, you can actually make it much cheaper for residents. So that's cropped up in my conversations with some of the leaders. So if I can just read you the recommendations, because I think there might be, yes, there is. So I recommend 3.1 to 3.4, but I would like to add a recommendation, which is that we approve this report to take to full council. Is everybody happy with that? And Ian, are you happy to second that change? Yeah.
Yeah, happy to second.
Okay, thank you. All those in favour? Thank you very much indeed. Okay, so moving on to item number 13, Shropshire Destination Management Plan 23 to 25. Councillor Rob Macy.
Sorry. This report outlines the future of tourism in our beautiful county of Shropshire. The Shropshire Destination Management Plan, the DMP, is a comprehensive strategy that will guide our tourism efforts for the next 3 years from 2023 to 2025. This plan has been meticulously crafted in consultation with public stakeholders and organisations deeply invested in our region's visitor economy. The Shropshire Destination Management Plan represents a significant step forward commitment to transform Shropshire into an even more compelling destination for visitors. It emphasises a partnership approach that brings together the public, voluntary and private sectors. This united effort is key to ensuring the sustainable growth of our tourism industry. At its core, the plan aligns with our broader strategic objectives as a council, especially those outlined in the Shropshire Plan. Let me highlight a few key areas of that focus. The first is healthy economy. The plan aims to develop Shropshire as a vibrant destination that attracts residents, workers, learners and visitors alike. By boosting tourism, we not only enhance our local economy, but also create more jobs, resulting in better quality experiences for our guests. The second is healthy people. We recognise that health and well-being are closely tied to outdoor experiences, green spaces and cultural enrichment. Our emphasis on special experiences, landscape preservation and improved accessibility will benefit both residents and visitors, supporting early intervention and prevention in healthcare. The third is a healthy environment. The plan underscores our commitment to maintaining, protecting and enhancing our outstanding natural environment. We'll promote positive behaviours, biodiversity and environmental sustainability through our tourism strategy. And the fourth is healthy organisation. Shropshire Council's Culture, Leisure and Tourism team, in collaboration with our partners, will work to better communicate the high quality tourism offerings in Shropshire. We aim to highlight what the council directly delivers to residents and visitors through its venues and cultural offerings. The plan reflects best practices from elsewhere, whilst ensuring that it's tailored specifically to meet the unique needs of Shropshire. It serves as a reference document for future funding opportunities and a foundation for bids into government programmes. Developers and tourism businesses can also use this plan to shape their investments. Crucially, we're proposing the establishment of a new tourism partnership to oversee the delivery of this plan. This partnership aims to apply for local visitor economy partnership status through Visit England, aligning our efforts with national, regional and neighbouring plans and reviews. To conclude, I want to emphasise that the Shropshire destination management plan, that's the hardest bit to get across, is a collaborative effort that will shape the future of our tourism industry. It's a testament to our commitment to the well-being of our county and the prosperity of our residents. We look forward to working together with all stakeholders to turn this vision into a reality. And just with a quick nod to the previous item, in the future, that may well look to expand beyond borders and so on, but it's this important first step that we need to take in passing. Thank you. I'll move the recommendations.
Thank you, Rob. Do I have a second of that? Councillor Cecilia Motley, did you want to say something now? Yeah? And then Julian.
Because I'm aware that trying to put together a destination management plan has been a bit of a rocket road in the past. And it's also trying to reconcile, the different destination management partnerships has not been easy. But I
Thank you, Cecilia. Councillor Julian Dean.
Thank you. I welcome this too. I just wanted to make 3 comments. This is going to get a bit personal, actually. So last week I was watching The Chase, and one of the contestants was asked, what are you going to do with the money when you win? And they explained, first of all, that they'd had a history of having all these international holidays flying around the world, but that the money they were actually going to use on internal tourism, trying to do more sustainable tourism, going on holiday on buses and on trains. Really interesting that an ordinary member of the public would say that. So clearly that is the mood music. So to develop a green tourism offer in Shropshire, it would be fantastic. And the second personal story is I spent the summer going on the Norman Way, which is a green way in the southeast corner of Ireland, which is an absolutely gorgeous area. Actually, it's the best weather in Ireland. It's the bit where it doesn't rain all the time. But it's a really well-developed sort of connection of routes, and there's somewhere to lock your bike regularly and all those sorts of things. It's a really good sort of attractive piece of sustainable tourism. So it'd be lovely to see some greenways in the area. And the third point is, again, personal thing. So I'm lucky enough to have a caravan. I actually have it in Shropshire, only have it half an hour away because it's a fantastic bolt hole to get away. And I just hope that there's a real recognition of the need to develop those internal tourism opportunities for the people of Shrewsbury, for the people of the towns, to get out and enjoy our countryside as much as possible and as sustainably as possible. So that does really mean that sustainable transport part of this story. And now that more and more people have electric bikes, actually getting out a much more getting out a significant distance into the county from the towns is more and more realistic, but it's still frankly not that safe if you're having to cycle on the A roads. So I think that really does need to be part of the story as well. Thank you.
Thanks, Julian. Julia?
Yes, I also want to make the comment about point 5, which is the sustainability angle. I agree that we need to encourage the active travel aspect of this, so that those sustainable tourists, the people who want to kayak, cycle, walk, etc., they can access the county. And I hope that this will be aligned to the recent work we've done on the LC WIP, where we were identifying those gaps in footpaths and cycle lanes, because often we have them, but they don't always join up. So you have those gaps, which then feel unsafe or unattractive. It's bad enough for residents, but if we want to encourage tourism, they need to feel safe. So I just hope that these 2 strategies will be aligned. We'll look at them together, make sure we feed that through. But the other side of that is about public transport. So out where we are in Bridgnorth, there is a summer service bus which takes you all along Wenlock Edge. Everybody knows about it locally. They get their bus pass out and they love to go on those day trips. And it's really attractive to visitors. You've got in here, how do we attract families? Having increased bus routes which enable families, older people, to access those different destinations is really important. The Guardian sent a travel writer to Bridgnorth to stay for a week, and their task was to visit as much of Shropshire as they could by public transport. I leave it to your imagination as to how far they got, because we really need to join these dots up. We really need to make sure not just that we have more similar services, that they join up these destinations, but crucially, we don't miss out the nighttime economy. You know, if those buses run later in the summer, then all of our economy would benefit. And the final point is actually around item number 4, which is this issue that Shrewsbury's got a much higher than average proportion of day visitors to overnight visitors, and then the consequent drop in income that brings. So linking back to our earlier discussion about that investment on Riverside, we know that will contain at least one hotel, but here they're talking how we can drive up the hotel capacity, not just in large chains, but also in those boutique hotels. So again, anything we can do that shapes the market, that shows that leadership, because this is the gap which could lead to that additional income flowing through for our area.
Councillor Ian Nellens, then Councillor Schofield.
Yeah. Thanks, Julia. A couple of points on that. First of all, on the transport piece, and we're all very aware of the lack of public transport. And it's actually yesterday when I was down in London, I spoke about Bridgnorth and Market Drayton in particular, because I haven't got Oswestry still hasn't got a train station, although Gabon's close. So I told them connect that Market Drayton is part of the West Midlands, but it's not connected anywhere, because it took me I had to drive 30 miles to get to a train station to get to London. So that point's well made, and we need to encourage that. As with the LC website, that plan will come very soon to Cabinet. Looking at the easier low-lying fruit things that we can do first of all, especially where people want it. And on the nighttime economy, obviously I own a pub. I'm glad to see nighttime economy. Market Drayton has very little accommodation. The only accommodation they have really is when people come in their own barge boats and they can stay on the canal. But places like that, and there are a lot of places in the county that have got a lot of things that tourists want to come and see, historic towns, historic villages, and unfortunately getting there and being able to stay there is a problem. I think it's something we need to look at. But yeah, take the transport piece.
Thank you. Councillor Schofield.
Thank you, Leader. With the new collaboration with the other 4 counties, I would imagine that, especially on the Welsh side, who haven't seen their fair share of tourism, I would imagine it's quite high on the top of their list to encourage it. So I think Councillor Macy's quite correct in saying if you can work with the other 3 counties, that'd be fantastic. And I think that would improve. And the other thing I always notice when I go everywhere, especially if I go to Yorkshire, in every room or hotel you stay in, you have a Yorkshire magazine. And I don't know whether we thought, but
I think some of the hotels still do that here. Councillor Jones.
Yeah, I welcome the report. It's something we've been needed to do for years, certainly on the planning side, because I know a lot of my customers, farmers, land agents are saying we've got no clarity on where you want tourism and how you want to do it. Sometimes we say they want to put a site up and the planners say it's too rural, they can't access it, they can't get to the towns, and then when we put one by the town they say we don't want it too near a town. So it does need a bit of clarity, so I'm hoping that we'll do that. I was slightly disappointed in some of the reading of it. I noticed there was no mention of any of the agricultural shows in the report, which do bring a lot of visitors in. I know we've got a fantastic show in Oswestry, there's a Newport show. I don't know, did they have a Bridgnorth show? No. Berwick show. And they bring in a lot of visitors, and that wasn't mentioned. But Oswestry Showground does have events every week, bringing tourists in. They had a truck show last week, and they have regular antique shows, dog shows, but it's there every week. So I was a bit disappointed that had been missed out, but I'm sure you'll put that in now, Rob. But overall, I think it's a good benefit for us, and I think we do need more places for people to stop in Shropshire, full stop.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Jones. Rob, obviously you're going to come back, but I've got just a couple of things that I want to say. Councillor Jones, I totally agree with you about the planning policies, that we absolutely lack a planning policy around glamping and camping pods, and have a word with your next door neighbour and see what he can do around that. Just picking up on something that Councillor Dean said, There was a study done recently, which I can't remember where it was, but it was in one of the Sunday supplements, which was talking about 25 to 35-year-olds, and the internal tourism market is huge for them. And I think actually, and I can't remember if it's specifically mentioned in here. Mark will tell me what the figure is because I can never remember. But one of the biggest things that we are looking at doing is trying to improve, and this is what Ian was doing yesterday, trying to improve the transport links from the Black Country to Shropshire, because there are how many millions of people? Is it 4.5 within 4.5 million within an hour and a half? Is it? Or yeah, 4.5 million people within an hour and a half. And we often talk about Shropshire as the green lungs of the West Midlands. Well, we need to be getting the Black Country out to us as their recreation time. I think that was it, Rob. Did you want to come back?
Yeah, it was only a couple of things really. Obviously, it is a thanks to Cecilia. I've inherited a good part of this, and that's certainly it's how we drive it forward now. Taking Julian's point, if you don't add in your personal experiences, then I don't think someone counts themselves as a councillor if it comes to doing their work and so on. And as someone who's come out of that bracket of 25 to 35 and has gone from visiting Shrewsbury for the bars, the restaurants and the other bits to bringing a 3-year-old and going to the castle and the wildlife trust and other things like that. Yeah, the experience shapes it, and so does the other councillors. I think just in terms of promoting the county as a whole, you'll note in the report that one of the conversations we're having about future working arrangements is with Telford and Wrekin, because to tourism, that makes sense. You say Shropshire, you want to be talking about the whole of Shropshire. So that is something that's sort of that actively pursuing that first step. And then we can do the things of selling Shropshire as a whole, knowing that everything joins up between ourselves and supporting that. And as you said, I think in terms of the shows and the other, there's probably a 100 things we've missed off the list in terms of the other bits. But I think this is what this partnership's about. It's not us doing everything. It's not us absolutely. It's developing that partnership with all of those organisations as well, so they can shout up and say, well, this is what I need. And there's different forums for them to do that. But taking Cecilia's point, it brings a little bit of structure to that, so there's some organisation and we can maximise the benefits. And when it comes to planning, for once, it's not me. So I'll leave Chris to deal with that one in the future.
However, the final point I did mean to make is around the partnership between the 4 councils. Visitor economy is actually one of the main themes, and you know the whole Marches tourism has always been extremely important to us. One of the things that will really help us is Visit Britain's new initiative, which is government driven, about local visitor economy partnerships, because basically we need to get partnerships together so that Visit Britain did with 100 organised rather than 700 or whatever it is. So in a way, our relationship with those 3 other councils is already really important, and add Telford into that, and you've actually got probably quite a sizable LBEP, to be honest. Thank you, Rob. Okay, I have a proposer, I have a seconder. All those in favour? Thank you very much indeed. We'll now move on to item 14, which is the exclusion of press and public. Well, we've obviously already managed to get rid of those, so I'll just wait for the signal to that we're no longer live.